Well, we've already played in one cup final this season. Box ticked, cup in the cabinet, but it's a very different cup final at this place behind us on Sunday. Biggest game, arguably, under Eddie Howe in the league since he took over. It's Chelsea at home in what is the Champions League qualification final. And we're going to look at things in a little bit closer detail on how we can beat this Chelsea team. Stick around, Newcastle fans, because it's all coming up. Welcome back to Black White Banter, ladies and gentlemen, from a beautiful St James's Park behind me. The sun is shining. I've got the hard shorts on. The legs are out, the baby calves are out. And all is well in the world, but my God, I would be lying if I said I wasn't absolutely bricking it for what is the Champions League qualification playoff final, if you want to call it that. Call it whatever you want. I've had more nervous poos just thinking about this game on Sunday than I could have ever imagined. 12 o'clock kick-off, which hasn't gone down well with the fans, but it's one of them things. It had to be televised and it couldn't clash with another televised game from Sky, so it has to be 12 so everyone at home can watch as much football, because we know that's what it's all about, TV revenue. But it's massive. Make no mistake about it, if you are going to the match on Sunday, be loud, be proud. If you need 5 or 6 pints, which I know some fans do before the match starts to really get behind the lads, Wetherspoon starts serving alcohol at 9, that's all I'm saying. The Black Garter, everyone knows the Black Garter, that will be open early enough. Get yourself in there. The Strawberry just down here, that'll be open early doors. Get yourself in, have whatever early pints you want, forget about the Sunday roast, we've got bigger things to fry. I was going to say bigger fish, bigger Yorkshire puddings to fry, not that you fry Yorkshire puddings, than any of that. It is much, it's as big as it comes, and I honestly believe, depending how results go this weekend, whoever wins this football match has 1 foot in the Champions League next season, and we don't even need to talk about how big that is for the football club. But who are we coming up against? Well, we're coming up against the slightly revived Chelsea team. They fell off a cliff after Christmas, including Mr. Ice Cold Cole Palmer. He was hot enough to cook your toast on. And I know hot wouldn't normally mean good, but ice cold Cole Palmer has not been ice cold for a long time. But they've won their last 3 matches, and there's a bit of a revival going on there as they clinch a Europa Conference League final place, which, you know, it's the glamorised Intertoto Cup, isn't it? So I don't think any Chelsea fans are too buzzing about that. Just probably the fact they've got a lovely little away day for that final. But yeah, they rested all of their players as you'd expect in the second leg. They were already 4-1 up, which was really frustrating for us. Selfishly, you would like to have hoped they might have had to play a stronger team to get over the line, but they didn't. So that hasn't changed much, the fact they played on Thursday. But we can beat these on Sunday. We can beat anyone inside that place. But let's look a little bit closer at how Chelsea have been setting up and how we can beat that. Well, I think a lot of people watching this video would probably agree with me that Moises Caicedo has probably been one of the best midfielders this season from a defensive holding central midfield sort of area. I think he would be up there. He'd be in the conversation this season, despite Chelsea being a little bit up and down in terms of form. Very, very good footballer, but you'd expect that for his price tag. But Mr. Maresca has been playing Caicedo in a right back, yes, that's right, a full back area because of injuries and whatnot, and he has been setting up there, as he did against Chelsea on Sunday, in a right back position, turning into an inverted midfielder as Chelsea transition time and time and time again. And I'll just share a graphic on the screen in terms of what that looked like. Now that might seem like madness to a lot of people. Why would Chelsea play what has been one of the best central defensive midfielders in a full-back area when he could be having such an influence in the centre of the park? Well, again, I'm going to use this Liverpool match on Sunday just gone as an example. Look at the average position of Caicedo. Look at him just hiding behind that other circle there in a central area. So his average position wasn't even in full-back areas. And yes, did Chelsea dominate on Sunday? Yes. Am I worried about that? Well, look, Liverpool were on the holidays. They made 5 changes. They did have the likes of Van Dijk and Salah in there, but when you make 5 changes like Arne Slot did, that sends out a message to the rest of the players, and I don't think Liverpool were ever really at the races. They're coming up against a very different Newcastle team on Sunday with a lot to play for. So that Liverpool game you can only look into so much. But the positions of this man was really interesting, because by Moises Caicedo going into that inverted role when Chelsea move forward, what does that allow? That allows Enzo Fernandez, the Argentinian, again, very expensive, because that's just how Chelsea do things. That's freed him up, and he has contributed a lot of goals. He's actually got the most goal contributions over Chelsea's last 5 or 6 games out of any other player he has been able to move up, and then Moises Caicedo has been able to sit in with Lavia, another youngster who I actually quite rate, who they got from Southampton, and that has just allowed him to go on, support the attack, get in behind, support Nicholas Jackson and the likes of Cole Palmer and Neto and Madueke, which we'll talk about in a second. And that's a different proposition for Newcastle from two areas. The Moises Caicedo thing at fullback is going to be important, how we target that, and I'll talk about that with our own team news in a second. But Newcastle's central midfield needs to be aware that Enzo Fernandez is going to support their attack at every opportunity. But what about Chelsea's wide areas? Well, Mr Madueke and Mr Neto, both players that Newcastle have been linked with. I was desperate for Newcastle to go after Neto last summer when he was linked. Obviously, we ended up signing barely anyone. Such an exciting player. I know he's had injury issues, but he is dynamite. He's got so much quality on his day. Madueke, not so much, but he is capable. He's quite a good finisher. And again, not a player I worry about too much, but those are always my famous last words. But what Chelsea do with these two is keep their wide men wide. And I'm going to share the average position of both on their screen in their last match. They keep the wide players wide. What does that allow? That allows them to have more space in the centre of the park, because Mr Livramento and Mr Trippier are going to have to stay wide to their men when they are attacking. Then you've got Enzo Fernandez and the free roaming Cole Palmer down that middle, with Mr Lavia and Caicedo going in as an inverted central midfielder behind them. So there's almost, Chelsea rely on an overload, and that's why not only do those central midfielders need to be at their game, Bruno, Tonali, to watch the likes of Cole Palmer, but also our fullbacks not only need to be supported by Fabian Schär and Dan Burn. We see it so commonly. Dan Burn will go over to cover for Livramento when he bombs forward, or he'll support him. That is going to be massive in this game. Yes, they have to keep an eye on Nicholas Jackson, who I don't rate very much. I think they can do that okay. But constantly having Neto and Trippier and Livramento in one-on-one positions against these two is dangerous. They will need support, and our central midfield just can't offer it. Jacob Murphy and either Harvey Barnes or Anthony Gordon, their role in supporting the fullbacks will be crucial, but also the cover of our centre-backs is exactly what Chelsea want, to open up more and more space so the likes of Enzo Fernandez can dive straight in there. So what does all this mean for Newcastle? Well, I think, as I've already talked about what needs to be done well, I think in terms of positions, in terms of players, this leads me on to teams. Well, you've got two ways you can do this. I can either talk about who I would like to play, or we can talk about who Eddie Howe probably will play. I think it's a daft video if I just say who Eddie Howe will play. For me, because of that midfield overload, with the likes of Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, and the two defensive midfielders who will support now and again just behind them, I would probably go Lewis Miley instead of Joe Willock for this one. It's a difficult one because Caicedo at right back needs to be targeted at every opportunity, and Joe Willock has the legs to do that. But I just worry about a midfield overload with the likes of Cole Palmer, Roman. Lewis Miley could put in much more of a disciplined defensive role than what Joe Willock would. Fullbacks obviously pick themselves. Now wingers, again, this is the difficult one, and I totally understand the argument that don't change players that are playing well. Harvey Barnes has been doing nothing but good things for Newcastle, scoring goals, assisting, and looking really, really dangerous, and he's much better in front of goal than Anthony Gordon, let's face it. But I just think you've got to target a central midfielder playing right back who will keep going in. And I think Anthony Gordon looked so zippy against Brighton. He is the man for this one from a tactical point of view. And I hope I'm proved wrong, because I said exactly the same thing against Man United, that Gordon should be the one to play to really drag them out and stretch them. Harvey Barnes played and we absolutely tonked them, so I'm happy to be wrong again. But I think Caicedo needs to be targeted at every opportunity. You want to drag him from that inverted midfielder role to where he doesn't want to be, playing fullback, which isn't his position. That's an area Newcastle really need to look at. So I would go Gordon and Miley, which is a total shake-up. But I don't expect Eddie Howe to do it. And Joe Willock, can I just say, has had such an exaggerated reaction from that Brighton performance. It wound me up. I went onto social media and I saw videos like this.
That Willock of old is old and gone. I think it's time to move on. I think it's time for him to leave. I think it's, and it's harsh because it's only a couple of games, but even when he's coming off the bench.
If you could have 5 minutes with Joe Willock before he runs out on Sunday, what would you say to him?
I would say to him, if Geordies love you, it takes an awful lot for them to stop loving you. And they loved you because you came in here before the new manager, etc., and you scored 6 goals and 7 goals.
Look, with
You will
utmost respect to John Gibson, and I think every Newcastle fan does respect him, why is there a conversation about having a 5-minute chat with Joe Willock in the dressing room? Arguably at Brighton, I thought that he contributed more than what Tonali and Bruno did in the first half. Couple of lung busting runs, just that final product. And Joe Willock, you can write him off if you want. I think he is a player, as any professional would tell you, who relies on minutes and minutes to not only grow in confidence, but get that decision making back, which we know he has. All of this talk about the only thing he contributed was that spell under Bruce is so disrespectful, because we are forgetting about his contribution to the Champions League qualifying season when him and Joe Linton was so good down the left-hand side. There is a player in there, but if you look at how many minutes he's played across the season, is it not hard for any player to get up to speed? I'm not writing him off by any means, and I didn't like some of the clickbait. You know, when Newcastle don't win a football match, we cannot just get behind the lads and move on to the next one. Ipswich, he was barely talked about because we won the game. Brighton, we get a frustrating draw, and the talking point is Joe Willock, when you could have talked about loads of players underperforming. It just winds me up. But yeah, I do think he'll go with Joe Willock, and if he does, he can get at Caicedo, he can carry us up the pitch, but he needs to be defensively disciplined and switched on. And I do think if he keeps stick with Harvey Barnes, I'm happy he can still get at Caicedo and keep the ball wide, but he can also score goals. Alexander Isak, we need a big performance from him. I'm just going to put it out there and say that Alexander Isak has been a bit disappointing in the last couple of weeks. I don't think he's fully fit. I think he's fighting through an injury that Eddie Howe's insisting that he plays with just to get through and get us over the line. If we have an Alexander Isak who gets 4 chances and scores 2 or 3, Newcastle United obviously have a great chance to win this football match. But if, like in other weeks, we have an Alexander Isak who gets 3 chances and only scores 1 penalty, I'm not so sure. So he really needs, if he is nursing an injury, I get it, it's difficult. Come on. And we do have options off the bench there if things aren't going well, which has been nice for Newcastle in previous weeks. The likes of Gordon or Barnes, Osula, who's not getting that many minutes but can be a box of frogs. Anyway, without further ado, that's my team news. Let's get into some some black and white banter stats. Stats. Newcastle United have got a pretty tasty record inside this lovely place behind me in recent years against Chelsea. We've won 7 of our last 11 home games against Chelsea, drawing 1 and losing 3. But most importantly, Eddie Howe, since taking over at Newcastle United, has won both of his matches against these, including a lovely 4-1 win last season. If anyone can get in the comments and tell me who scored that day. Look, Enzo Fernandez, we talked about him. He is going to get forward at every opportunity the more that Moises Caicedo moves into that midfield from full-back. And look, the proof's in the pudding. Only Mo Salah has created more chances in 2025 than the Argentinian, which was a stat that really surprised me. He's got more goal contributions than any other Chelsea player this year as well. 3 goals and 3 assists, and he's got 1 or the other in his last 3 matches in all competitions as well. Definitely one to watch, definitely one for our midfield to keep a close eye on. I feel like there's always an Alexander Isak stat just because I want to big him up. It's such a crucial part of the season. No player has scored more goals and also non-penalty goals this year since December than Alexander Isak. He's also looking to score in 4 consecutive league matches against Chelsea. So this man likes playing against these, which is always a nice one to finish these stats. Now this is the bit I was dreading. Predictions time. Look, this game is absolutely ginormous for this football club. You know, worst case, you're looking at a draw, because I don't even want to say a loss, because yes, we've still got matches left, but with Arsenal to come, Everton, you would probably argue the best one of the 3 to come on paper. This one is huge, and I honestly think that Newcastle on our day can blow away a team that is awful away from home. And I want to just emphasise that Chelsea are like 18th in the form table for away form in the Premier League this season. If we are at it, we can absolutely blow them away, and I hope we do it from the first whistle. They have played on a Thursday, even if a lot of their players haven't. Let's give them a game like we know this Newcastle team can against any side at St James's Park. Every single player knows the importance of this. Eddie Howe doesn't even need to tell them. So if every man is on it, I'm fancying us. I'm going to go I think we're going to blow them away, and I never normally say this, and this is where I'm going to look like an absolute knob if it doesn't go. The 12 o'clock kick-off isn't ideal, but we've got a decent lunchtime record under Eddie Howe, funnily enough. I'm going to go Newcastle 3-1. Let's get into these, and let's get one foot in Europe's top competition and get sat back at that table next season, because it is so important for the growth of this football club that we are playing top European football. Get us your predictions down below, Newcastle fans. I hope you've liked this preview, and if you haven't already, whack that like. It goes a long way and helps this video go to a few more eyes, and get Black and White Banter on here by subscribing and across all social media. Into these cockneys on Sunday. Let's have it. Hoya lads!